Every single business owner will make mistakes. So don't think that you're going to realize or signed, wires are about to hit, deals about to close. Say, get out of your own way, take advice, find a natural network, and do planning. Because if
we all exit our company eventually. The question is, will it be on your terms or someone else's? Strategy matters. Timing matters. The right partner changes everything. Brought to you by Meritage Partners. Here is your host, Brian Franco, author of The Inevitable Exit. This is the M&A Guy Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the M&A Guy. I'm your host, Brian Franco, founder and CEO of Meritage Partners and author of The Inevitable Exit, guiding and leading founders and stakeholders on how to prepare for what we call their inevitable exit. And today's guest is a very special guest, a good friend of mine that is guiding and leading founders, entrepreneurs, and individuals when it comes to legacy, wealth planning, tax strategies, you name it. We named this podcast episode, Life After Liquidity, what every founder should know before the wire hits. And that's Mr. Evan List with Bernstein Private Wealth. Evan, thanks for being on with us. How you doing today?
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Doing well. I can't believe that it's already here. The year's already blown by. It's crazy.
It is crazy. We were just together at a conference. We were talking on a panel in early November. Feels like last weekend. And we spoke to a group of healthcare professionals, which, I think our particular panel really resonated with the audience and the content and the subject of which we were discussing. But I want to dive into it a little bit deeper here with you one-on-one, because, the reality is, when a founder, stakeholder is approached sometimes on an unsolicited basis with an offer to acquire their company, and, what they quickly find out is this, the offer might be beautiful, but they are not ready or their business is not ready. And as you and I both know, without that proper planning, it's going to be too late if they're reacting to this sort of offer that's typically tens, if not $100 million in their pockets, right? And so we used to say, if this was, 20 years ago, we wouldn't say when the wire hits, we would be when the check clears, right?
Yep.
Well, welcome to the future, 2026. Here we go.
Exactly.
But tell us at Bernstein, kind of what your role is and
Sure.
and how you work with clients.
Yeah, no, look, I appreciate that. Always any opportunity to talk about Bernstein and what I do in my practice, I will jump at it. So thank you again for having us. I've been at this firm, Bernstein, for almost 20 years. So just as the M&A space has evolved, the firm has evolved as well. But I would say that the challenges facing entrepreneurs and business owners today, it's only gotten more complex and complicated. So my role at Bernstein, I actually sit in our New York office, is helping to lead our family office practice. And that has a lot of intersection with the business owner and entrepreneur set, as you know, right? A lot of our business owners, when they do have that inevitable exit, thank you to the author extraordinaire over there. I always keep it on my desk as a good reference guide. That inevitable exit, if it comes at a time where the entrepreneur is just not prepared for an exit conversation, it can leave them wanting more, and mistakes can be made. So our job at Bernstein, the only thing we really get paid to do is manage money. So we love when that wire hits the Bernstein account. The 99% of the work and the planning work and the conversations to avoid those mistakes have to happen before the sale. And likely, as you and I've talked about a couple of times on panels, not even before the sale, before that entrepreneur is even ready to entertain the idea of a sale, right? Making sure that they have all their ducks in a row, that takes time. And so before an LOI hits the desk or before an offer comes across the email, make sure that you've kind of done a couple of these preliminary planning steps whether it's with me at Bernstein or with your own, wealth manager. That would be my kind of initial advice. And so I know I didn't tell you much about Bernstein. We've been around for a long time. We manage roughly $1 trillion in assets for our clients globally. But importantly, we are not a bank. So we are here as a true partner to our business owner clients and to our family clients, hoping to help them achieve the goals that they have, passing wealth to the next generation, having a philanthropic impact, maybe minimizing the taxes that they pay either at the sale or upon death, right? That's really our job, is to help our clients achieve the financial goals that they are setting for themselves every single day.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And you navigate, and we together navigate a tremendous amount with our clients. And, the private capital markets is typically where these offers are coming from. So, there's a variety of flavors of capital, from private equity to family offices to independent sponsors. We've done hundreds of transactions. 21 of our clients we sold to publicly traded buyers in the market.
That's amazing.
But the common theme has always been everyone has been strategic. And reason why is, 1 + 1 = 3 or greater. That's always the equation we're looking for. And when we find that, it's not difficult to put the playbook together to execute on the exit strategy. But what becomes a stepping stone in this entire legacy and wealth strategy is, we always ask the client, what are you exiting into?
Yeah.
And so, we really touch on the aspects of, their involvement in the company, but more, and as human beings, it's really our identities really tied to the business, right? I mean, my daughter was she was looking at my closet yesterday, and she's like, "Daddy, why do you have so many black shirts?" And I'm like, "Well, those are all my Meritage shirts, right?"
That's Daddy's brand, honey. Yeah.
Daddy's brand. Like, you should be wearing it too.
That's funny.
It is funny, but it's an illustration, and to the point that is, look, my identity is really wrapped up in my company, and I one day will exit, as I always say, and I just want it to be on my terms, not someone else's. And
Yep.
so, in the world of the private capital markets, in itself is a mystery. And sometimes even worse, it feels like a threat. But with the right planning, with the right playbook and strategy, there's a massive opportunity to step into liquidity and create generational wealth. But that doesn't
Absolutely.
happen by accident. And so when you mentioned something a moment ago, and that was, call with you, wealth advisors, ahead of the offer, ahead of going to market. But if we were to frame this on a calendar, what does wealth planning, when does it really begin?
Yeah. I mean, look, it's again, a really good question. And I hate to give a trite answer and just say it depends, but usually it depends, right? The earlier someone can begin the planning process, the better. It's also never too late to get some planning work done. I've been brought into situations, certainly, what you might think would be too late. LOIs are signed, wires are about to hit, deals about to close. Client now realizes, oh shit, I haven't done, the transferring. I'm going to write a giant check to Uncle Sam. What can I do? And most of the time, some doors have been closed on the planning front, but there's still opportunities to add value and to look beyond the sale. But, really stepping back to when would be the right time to start planning, I would say it's at inception, right? If you are an entrepreneur, if I put this in the entrepreneur framework, right? So you have startup, that's where we can come in as a planner and help align corporate structure, help build the teams to help you kind of map out that long-term objective. Then as you enter the growth stage, explore capital needs, connect you with capital partners or different financing opportunities, leverage our internal research and our strategic decision makers to maybe help chart a different path. As a company reaches maturity, right? Then start to lay the plans and the groundwork for a potential liquidity event, right? Do the planning work on the personal front to understand what it is that you as the entrepreneur, as the founder, have to achieve in an exit in order to meet your lifestyle objectives. Perhaps that number is actually lower than what you had in mind as your, ideal exit, right? I would say, when you think about road bumps, speed bumps of entrepreneurs when it comes to deals happening, and I know you and I have talked about this, the reason why you talk about 20 something deals and not 40 something deals having gotten done is usually because of the entrepreneur, usually because of the business owner, right? Either they expected too high a price than what the market could bear. The owner anticipates great momentum. Oh, I've built the next great thing and I'm hesitant to give up that upside. Okay. Owner may be dating too many buyers, right? If they're not working with a Meritage Partners, maybe they're talking to too many potential people and they never can seal a deal, right? A lot of dates, but no wedding. I think that that's a big problem. And finally, owners can be reluctant when someone shows them the tax bill, says, hey, you're about to exit for $100 million and you're going to write Uncle Sam a $50 million check. It's, oh, what? No. I'm just going to keep running this thing, paying myself whatever it is and, and move on. So that's at that maturity stage where I think you can start to talk about those big alphabet soup items of planning opportunities like qualified small business stock, QSBS, maybe gifting into a charitable remainder unit trust, a CRUT. If you own this business 100%, perhaps you and your wife do some spousal lifetime access trust gifting, or even, what we call nings, dings, and wings, using some intentionally defective grantor trusts to move some of these shares off of your balance sheet and into others. And finally, right, there's kids, there's philanthropy, donor advised funds, things like that. A lot of that stuff, all that alphabet soup, the sooner you do it, the better the benefits become, right? Once an LOI comes in the door, you kind of have a valuation being struck. It's kind of hard to tell the IRS, hey, my business was actually only worth $50 million when I gifted it to my kids. And they said, no, you had an offer for 100. I'm sorry, it's worth 100. You owe all these extra taxes. So worth doing the planning on that front. And then finally, the post-exit and succession side, right? I think a lot of founders, a lot of family-owned enterprises have a belief that their kids are going to take over the business, right? This idea of succession. We've all seen the HBO show, right? It's a lot of times can be a little messy, right?
That's right.
This won't happen to you with your children, but most founders think that their kids are going to take over when the reality is that less than 30% of businesses pass on to the next generation and only 15% of businesses make it to a third generation. So it's highly likely, as you said, that this is going to be some sort of strategic acquisition, either PE or maybe even to a publicly traded company that's stepping in with some sort of interesting strategic acquisition target. And so being prepared, working with experts like you and us to really think beyond your son taking over, I think that's a big piece of the planning puzzle. And, as someone who leads our family office practice, I would just say that family governance, that family engagement piece, having conversations with your children about wealth, about the business, about what the values are of this company and of this family, those are things that you cannot put a price tag on. And, to the original question that I've now stepped completely over, it's never too soon to start having those conversations.
Well, you're spot on because, I like you say your exit plan should start with your business plan. You have to know how you get in. You're going to have a vision you're going to execute on every day with you and your team. But you also need to know where your off ramp or off ramps are, because a liquidity event could be in part or it could be in whole, right?
Yeah.
And so I 100% agree with that. And, but the reality is, you and I interact with clients where they didn't do exactly that. Some of them do, but most of them don't. In fact, the stats are roughly 80% of entrepreneurs do not have an exit plan, and they're not planning for that inevitable exit, as we coin it. And so if you're at the negotiating table with a buyer or an investor, and your personal finances are not structured, you are already behind. I mean, you made that point very clear. I cannot agree with you more. But the best exits that we've all worked on, they really start upstream, and they start when you begin to consider. So that's just it. Options are key. I mean, we have, and I'm sure you have stories too, but we have case studies where at a gentleman who was not even 40 years old, went home on a Friday on his motorcycle, never came back. He ended up a human vegetable at a very successful energy company. And, he recently passed, which is devastating for the family in itself. We were brought in to sell the company, which we did. It was a successful transaction, but, you think, gosh, I'm 30 years old. I don't need to start thinking about this now. I'm 40 years old. Now I'll worry about that 10 years from now, or 15 years from now. But I wholeheartedly agree with you. I don't mean to scare the audience and those tuning in. I mean, God forbid anything bad happens like that to any of us, but it can. And I'm wise enough to know it could happen to me. And so, but when we start these companies, Evan, as entrepreneurs, they're seeking financial freedom, and they're seeking a lifestyle that they could only afford to live by starting their own businesses and building their own companies. But this is all designed, right? But one of the hardest transitions that I've seen founders and operators when it comes to wealth stewardship, it's a total identity shift, right?
Yeah.
And that's, we all have egos. I have one. Everyone has one. But how do we help those clients define what freedom is? And how do we help them define what are they exiting into? Because to your point, you could step into a philanthropic kind of scenario where you are taking part of your wealth and you're doing whatever you choose to do if it's with 501c3s or particular organizations in your community or your church. There's so much power in that. And that's part of the legacy. That's part of what we're exiting into. And I mean, I'm sure you see that quite often, don't you?
Absolutely. I mean, the power of a liquidity event on a family, one that, can set up, as you said, generational wealth for someone who's maybe, as you said, 30, 40 years old with kids. Look, many of those people are not done. They are entrepreneurs. And so the planning that we would do would certainly have a big, bright, highlighted line that says, seed capital, what's next? What's, building that bucket so that they can go and do that next thing. Yeah. But certainly, the big things that grant someone the confidence to feel free, to feel like the exit, not only was it an inevitable exit, but it was a successful exit, is that they have laid the foundation to achieve the things that they, or this individual person is hoping to achieve with that money, right? When you have an exit, the money can only go a handful of places. Right? It can go to Uncle Sam. We can pay taxes. It can go to your kids or grandkids, right, through wealth transfer, or it can go to a charity, right? That's really it. Or, it could go to the next venture. Okay, so there's 4 places where your proceeds can go. How do you fill those different buckets? Yeah, I guess you can take a napkin at a bar and try to sketch it out for yourself. Or you can spend some time and do some thoughtful discovery and understand what it is that needs to go in each of those buckets. So from a philanthropic standpoint, there's a tax component to gifting to a philanthropy, certainly. But, as I always tell clients, there has to be an underlying philanthropic like intent. You're not just going to throw $50 million into a foundation or a donor advised fund because it's going to save you taxes. Like, that's great. That's a great outcome of the planning exercise, but you actually have to use that thing to achieve some sort of impact. And by the way, it's a great tool to teach your kids or my kids are a little younger, right? Teach an 11-year-old or a 9-year-old or a 5-year-old. You're not going to just show them that you got $100 million. You're going to use this philanthropic bucket to educate them about the responsibilities of having wealth. What does this actually mean? What does our family stand for? Have them advocate for an organization that they care about. And so you take that entrepreneurial bucket, you build the philanthropic bucket, you build out a core wealth bucket so that you never have to worry that you're going to be on the streets, right? Structure a portfolio of liquid and illiquid and opportunistic assets that are managed professionally by yours truly at Bernstein, so that you know that you can take your risk in your entrepreneurial bucket, give your philanthropy in your philanthropic bucket, and never have to worry about your core wealth because that's being handled professionally. And by the way, right, the tax component of then that core bucket is a huge piece for an entrepreneur, right? For us, being able to manage equities in a way that delivers tax losses to an entrepreneur that then can apply them against a gain in their own private investing, that's a huge benefit, right? You and I always talk about it's not what you earn, it's what you keep. That's a huge part of this.
It is. Well, Evan, you personally worked on a number of exits with a number of clients, and you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and so I have as well. And we could talk about those case studies, but I want to be inspiring, and I want to provoke thought in those tuned in right now. With that theme and with that framework, what's some of the regrets, common mistakes and regrets that clients have had post-exit wealth strategy, and what are those blind spots and mistakes that they should be looking out for? Because I think sometimes we learn by, do what's advice you're receiving.
Yep.
But also, I mean, there was ways I've learned where I always say I never lost money in business, but I paid tuitions along the way, right? And so I'll call it the dumb tax. I paid the dumb tax, right?
Yeah.
And so, but what are how can you, in your experiences, give some blind spots or mistakes that those tuned in right now should be considering? Because you're right, these entrepreneurs are not dumb. They're just busy and they're working to set priorities. But what does that look like? What are those blind spots that you've seen over the years?
Look, I would say the biggest blind spot, and this is not, a monopoly owned by business owners, but the biggest blind spot is us personally, right? We are the stars of our own shows, right? Yeah. So the recognition, step one of minimizing mistakes, because everyone listening to the call, when they have their inevitable exit, go out and get it on Amazon. Every single business owner will make mistakes. So don't think that you're going to be perfect in this process. The idea is minimize those mistakes by recognizing that, one, you're not unique. Okay. Other people have gone through this exit many, many times before you. So ask for advice. Ask a Brian Franco to connect them with other people who have gone through similar exits. Go to networking events, work with your advisor team, whether it's your accountants, your attorneys, your wealth advisors, to get in their ecosystem of other business owners like you. Because I can tell you that when you're in a room with 5 people, 5 families who have gone through the similar exit that you are exploring before you, and you ask them, what was the mistake that you made? What was the biggest, stress point? How did you talk about it with your kids, right? Hearing it from your peers for some reason, people seem to absorb that better than hearing it from somebody like me and you, even though we can
Correct.
talk about it till we're blue in the face. So
Yes, you can.
seek out a natural network of like-minded entrepreneurs that you can bounce ideas off of. Do it in an informal setting where someone isn't trying to sell you a product. I think that's key. And then finally, when it comes to advice, a lot of times people say, I know better, or, I don't know. It's like people are giving you advice and helping you think through these things, not for their own benefit, but for yours, right? Take that at face value. Certainly get second opinions, try to build your team. I always tell my clients and my entrepreneurs that, this is like King Arthur and the Round Table, right? Your job is to fill the seats with all the knights from all the different parts of your life that are important to you. Build your own advisory team for this transaction. I'm not talking about the board that you have for your actual business. I'm talking about your wealth advisor, your investment banker, right? The whole pinwheel of professionals
CPAs.
that are in the M&A space, right?
That's right.
And we will share advice. You want someone who can play well in the sandbox, who's going to say to you, hey, I know you probably haven't talked about this, but we should explore using qualified small business stock, right? Oh, what is that, Evan? Oh, well, it's right. Here's how we can save $15 million, in gains. Here's how we can do X, Y, Z. Here's how we can pass wealth to the kids. And everyone at that table can poke holes in the ideas, opine on their own ideas. And at the end of the day, right, it's almost like this new world of AI where you can kind of build your own brain trust, but these are real people, right? And the beautiful thing, like we're doing today, you're in the West Coast, I'm in New York. Because of Zoom, you can build an advisory team, a round table, if you will, from all over the country. And so I would say, get out of your own way, take advice, find a natural network, and do planning. Because at the end of the day, you might only get one bite at this apple. You want to leave some on the side for, Uncle Sam, or do you want to maximize how much of that apple you're going to pass on to your kids?
It's great advice. And you think about, I think what really resonated with me with what you just said was, be part of a network or a community, people that have been there, done that. I know that I would not be where I am today without the mentors that I've had throughout my entire career. And they've been, extremely helpful and valuable. And, the wisdom that they possess and share with you is powerful, absolutely powerful. And, as kids,
I love that advice. I love that. The idea of a mentor, people love to mentor, by the way. Like, I think there are some people who have this negative perception of asking somebody for advice. But the reality is that it's way easier to ask someone to be your mentor or to give them advice than to try to sell them something, right? People love to talk about themselves.
Well, I'm going to need your help because we have built a community it's a call to action in the book called the Empire Builders Community. And that's exactly what we designed this to be, is to have access to those advisors, CPAs, attorneys, tax planners, wealth advisors, even, in some cases, there's a woman that I know, she does a lot of the intangible work and even emotional work that comes along with this. But you're not alone, and those out there are not alone, but this community is designed to really help collapse time and accelerate that process, because you could go out and do this on your own. You could search it online. You could run it through ChatGPT, and it's going to give you a lot of good advice. But then the question is, okay, well, how do you prioritize this? And when do I do what? And to your point, we always say plan 12 to 24 months out. But you bring up a good point with QSBS, and QSBS, if I'm not mistaken, that's a 5-year plan.
5 years. So and you want to start that early and often. Again, we talked about this at the start of the conversation. It's never too early to start having these conversations. Kind of to wrap it back up and bring it back to where we started. find a good team of advisors. The beauty with working with me and my team at Bernstein, and I don't mean this to sound like a sales pitch, but I guess that's kind of part of the point of the conversation. Look, we don't charge anything for advice and for planning and for the partnership, right? So our goal is to be that giver of resources and giver of advice and planner, so that ultimately when the wire hits and you've done all the work, that it's just natural that it's going to land at your Bernstein investment accounts. So find that team, find that trusted advisor. I think that in today's world where AI and, as you said, ChatGPT and all these things, yes, you can get access to information at the touch of a button, but what you cannot replicate, and why I'm very confident that even though I've been at Bernstein 20 years, that the next 20 seem very, very promising, is that trust and the value of personal and personalized advice has never been more valuable.
Wholeheartedly agree. And Evan, I mean, I'll just say publicly, I met you last year, spent some time with you on the East Coast, and I'm a very, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I can discern good humans when I meet them. You are a good person. You're trustworthy. And I always have this stress test of like, could I have Evan watch my kids?
I love that.
And it forces you to say, do I trust this person? And I do trust you. And I am looking for a babysitter. So
having met your kids, I think that they could probably babysit themselves at this point, but you can come babysit mine. I feel the same way.
Right, fair enough. Well, Evan, I appreciate you spending the time sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. You've been there, you've done that. I encourage folks that are tuned in and listening in to reach out to Evan. We're going to have some show notes, Evan, where folks could reach you, but quickly, what's the easiest way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, look, I appreciate that. Certainly, you can email me at evan.list@bernstein.com. You can call me 212-756-4509. I don't think people make phone calls anymore, but some people will. But ultimately, look, as I said, I'm happy to be a resource. And so if there are folks who would like resources around any of the topics that we talked about today, QSBS, wings, dings, and flings, you just reach out. We'll send you the pieces that we have on all of these. We have some good white papers and one-pagers on all of these topics. Reach out to Brian. Brian can find me as well. I look forward to having some good conversations with many of you.
My hope is that is exactly what happens. So, Evan, thank you for joining us, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of the M&A Guy Podcast, where we talk about real life scenarios, real transactions. We're boots on the ground type of people. We see these things every single day, multiple times a day. So if you want to reach out to Evan, you have his contact. We'll have some show notes for you. And if you're considering your inevitable exit, we have some tools for you. Visit us at meritage.partners. And we have a ton of resources as well as future events we'd love to invite you to. But until then, I'm your host, Brian Franco. Keep building your empire.